Chosen one, step into the room like you belong here, because you do. Look around and understand this. You are not ordinary. You never have been. You carry something in you that no one else can replicate. And tonight, you're being reminded of that. This is your moment to rise, to claim every ounce of what you were born to be. You didn't stumble here by accident. You were called. And there's nothing casual about that. So stand tall. Breathe it in. You are more powerful than you've been led to believe, more capable than you've dared to imagine, and more chosen than you've ever allowed yourself to feel. This isn't just another gathering. This is the awakening of everything you thought you'd lost, everything you thought was too far gone. So welcome to the space where the extraordinary is expected, where your story matters, where your presence changes the atmosphere. Tonight, or right now, remember, you are not here to shrink. You are here to shine, to shake the ground, to remind the world that nothing and no one can take away what was already written for you. Welcome, chosen ones. Let's go. Looking for purpose and peace? Hit subscribe and start the journey. There is something alive in certain people that cannot be measured by ordinary means. Not just warmth or charisma, but an unspoken current that unsettles silence, that bends the air itself. Some carry within them a quiet force that changes everything around them, a force that can't be ignored, even by those who pretend not to notice. And yet, many approach such a presence carelessly, as though stepping onto common ground. Unaware they tread where the earth remembers every footprint and answers for every trespass. This isn't merely kindness mistaken for softness, nor difference mistaken for novelty. This kind of spirit arrives into the world already marked with a different code, guarded by something no eye can see. Anyone allowed near is not just meeting a person. They are standing at the edge of something far bigger than themselves. And it's telling. Some are handed the rare chance to stand close to this power, only to waste it by treating it as spectacle rather than sanctuary. So let it be clear now. What seems effortless is not without consequence, and proximity to such a soul is no casual matter. The privilege is not owed. It is granted, and it can be revoked. Because this presence doesn't simply fill a space. It rearranges it. It stirs what has been hidden, makes shadows quiver, and calls into question everything false without speaking a word. It is not a look, not a tone, not a gesture, but a resonance that was shaped in storms and sharpened by everything endured. Step beyond the screen. Join and help light the way for others. There are those who can blend into the noise, vanish into the crowd, and then there are those whose very stillness resounds louder than words. Such a person does not aim to confront, yet they disrupt illusions just by existing. They wake sleeping truths in others, truths they may not be ready to face. This is why some cling in awe while others recoil in fear. Clarity is not welcome everywhere, and not everyone can withstand what it reveals. Some carry a quiet radiance that confuses the world, not because it shouts or demands, but because it simply exists, unwavering and undeniable. Power here does not announce itself with spectacle or noise. It glimmers in stillness, filling spaces in ways words never could. Those attuned enough can sense it before a single step is taken, before a single sound is made. And in its presence, even the most disordered hearts feel themselves rearranged. This presence does not merely brighten a room, it redefines its very shape. For anyone near, the encounter is not casual. It changes something, whether or not they are willing to see it. There's nothing ordinary about the way resilience breathes through such a soul. What walks here is living proof that grace and strength can inhabit flesh, that something unseen can inhabit what looks human. No wonder admiration and unease so often arrive together. This isn't simply a person who endured and grew stronger. This is someone whose existence itself shatters illusions others depend on, remaining intact, luminous, and composed despite every force designed to erase them is enough to unsettle those who've built their lives on control, deceit, and hollow titles. Every moment of quiet perseverance, every refusal to collapse, every choice to heal rather than retaliate, these have become a quiet indictment of all that is false around them. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of his sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor his kingdom. May his grace guide you always. What stands before others was not assembled by favor or pretense. No borrowed masks, no hidden bargains, no false scaffolding holds it up. Every fragment was forged through alignment with inner truth and the kind of pain that would have ground others to dust. That is why its light unsettles as much as it inspires. It does not simply soothe or flatter, it confronts, revealing every concealed fracture in those who stand too close. This is not a strength that needs to shout. This is the kind that reshapes the air without needing to move at all. Many cannot recognize what they've been allowed near because they expect such force to arrive wrapped in ceremony or grandeur. When it doesn't, when it simply is, they don't know how to behave. They stare, they imitate, they compete, unable to admit what they already know. This presence was not merely built, it was sent. And what has been sent does not bow to what has not. Proximity to such a being is never guaranteed. It is neither a social courtesy nor a casual right. It is a kind of permission, a rare opening of gates they may never see again. And because of that, it demands readiness. Not everyone who wants access is capable of holding it. Those unprepared find their insecurities stripped bare. This is not aloofness, nor is it indifference. There is simply an understanding of how dangerous it can be to allow the wrong hands to touch what is sacred. Many arrive not to give but to consume, seeking to drink from someone else's clarity, someone else's peace. But closeness to such a presence always carries consequences. It either awakens the sleeping or exposes the unworthy. Some were given access not as a reward but as a measure, to see what they would do when confronted with something purer in a world of artifice. Would they rise to meet it, or squander it trying to diminish what they could never possess? Many failed, and failure leaves its marks. There is no need to chase what turns away. This presence is already the gift, already the catalyst. The right ones will recognize and rise. The wrong ones will retreat into the familiar patterns that keep them small. No explanation is owed anymore. Being near is not just a moment. It is an invitation to rise, to shed illusions. Those who cannot meet the call dissolve into their own shadows, and the doors close without noise, never to reopen. What inhabits certain beings is not learned, borrowed, or staged. Without uttering a single word, they carry something that unsettles the air, altering the rhythm of everyone around them. Conversations falter, eyes turn without understanding why, and invisible weight shifts in the room. It's not the kind of power that begs to be seen. It simply is, and it doesn't need to speak its name to be felt. Step beyond the screen. Join and help light the way for others. This force is not built on noise, applause, or theatrics. It doesn't chase recognition because it has no need of it. There's no spotlight large enough to contain what burns from within, no pedestal high enough to define it. Wherever it stands, falseness recedes, illusions dissolve, and reality begins to sharpen. For some, this brings relief, a sense that something true has finally arrived. For others, it awakens discomfort, fear, even hostility. What makes it extraordinary is its quiet confidence, its refusal to masquerade or compete. It moves not from ego but from alignment, and that alignment speaks louder than any declaration. Those who depend on appearances, who rely on roles and performance to navigate the world, feel exposed in its presence, because what stands before them needs nothing to prove its worth. It simply exists, and that existence alone unravels their pretense. This presence does not seek to outshine or dominate. It simply exists in its fullness, calm, ancient, untamed, and that alone is enough to shift everything. In a world addicted to shallow spectacle and hollow gestures, encountering something unmanufactured can feel like both a blessing and a reckoning, which is why some are drawn to it obsessively, while others recoil in confusion, trying to compete with what cannot be imitated. It was never meant to conform or hide. Its very purpose is to remind others of what is genuine, of what they've buried beneath layers of fear and convenience, to remind them that stillness holds more power than performance, and whether consciously or not, that reminder lives in the room long after it's gone. Often, this kind of presence is mistaken for intimidation, but it is nothing of the sort. What others call fear is really unfamiliarity. They simply have not encountered someone unwilling to shrink, unwilling to disguise their own truth, to ease the insecurities of others. This kind of authenticity feels dangerous only because it cannot be controlled or predicted. It does not bend to expectations. It does not soften itself to win favor. It stands as it is, unapologetic, carrying flaws and fire with equal grace. Not cruel, not cold, but clear. And clarity has a way of unsettling those who've built themselves out of borrowed identities. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor His kingdom. May His grace guide you always. This kind of being does not need approval, and that alone rattles those who live for it. Even without a word, it can see through facades, through games, through noise, and people feel that gaze, whether they understand it or not. Those who cannot hide from themselves in its presence call it a threat, but it is merely a mirror showing them who they've become. It moves with certainty, not arrogance, certain of itself, certain of its origin, certain that it does not have to perform to deserve a place. This kind of energy does not intimidate. It simply refuses to make itself smaller. Those who are unfamiliar with such wholeness confuse it for danger because it asks them, without asking, to confront themselves. There are those who carry within them a story older than their own breath, a silent inheritance stitched into their being long before they arrived. This essence does not begin with them, nor will it end there. It is a resonance born of struggles, whispered petitions, and battles fought in the unseen by those who came before. What moves through them is not merely personal. It is the culmination of generations who tried to reach something higher, but could not. And now, that effort lives here, manifest, quiet but undeniable. Others can feel it without knowing what they're sensing. Something ancient lingers in the air, elusive yet unmistakable. It's not something learned, not something crafted. It is etched into the spirit itself, and sharpened by solitude, endurance, and rising from places no one expected. This presence carries the answers to questions their ancestors never stopped asking. It opens doors and rooms where others never found the key. People often don't know how to respond to such an energy. One moment they're enchanted, the next defensive, as if standing too close to it reveals everything they've been avoiding. Because this kind of presence carries a quiet truth. Transformation is possible. Healing is not a myth. Strength does not need to roar to be real. What shines here was never assembled from teachings or trends. It arrived through lessons written on the bones, through moments of alignment when everything else fell apart. Words from this place strike deeper. Gestures soothe chaos without effort, and patterns that trapped whole bloodlines begin to unravel in the smallest exchanges. For some, that recognition stings, not because it diminishes them, but because it forces them to see what they could have become if they'd faced themselves sooner. It is not superiority that unsettles them. It is reflection, a living example of what they told themselves was impossible. That is why they stare too long, or retreat, or mimic in confusion. Even if unspoken, they sense that they are looking at a threshold, a reminder that destiny can erupt through even the most rigid lineage and rewrite everything that came before. There is no such thing as a meaningless encounter here. Every interaction ripples far beyond the visible. Even if others think it's accidental, their paths crossing this presence was never random. It was an arrangement written in silence. And how they respond to it determines what unfolds next. Not just for them, but for the path they are walking. Those who approach with humility and care find their own burdens lighten, their vision sharpen. Things begin to fall into place around them. But those who arrive with arrogance, hidden agendas, or cruelty discover that the cost of mishandling what was meant to bless them is steep. Not out of revenge, but because some doors, once disrespected, close for good. This presence acts as a balm to some, a revelation to others, but never nothing. Some feel seen for the first time, while others feel exposed in ways they cannot endure. It does not argue. It does not punish. It simply reflects what they bring. and those who try to exploit or diminish it find themselves at odds with forces they cannot name. Patterns of collapse often follow those who misuse what was placed before them, not as a petty punishment, but as the natural order correcting itself. What came to elevate them becomes a lesson instead. There is no longer a need to seek apologies or chase explanations. What is sacred keeps its own account. What others choose to do with the opportunity of standing in this presence belongs to them, but so does the outcome. Whether they leave lighter or shattered depends entirely on how they held what was offered. There exists a quiet brilliance in some that was never borrowed from trends, praise, or staged wisdom. It does not depend on appearances, rehearsed words, or how many eyes are watching. This kind of radiance was forged in silence, emerging only because what tried to extinguish it failed. What shines now was carved out of despair, and instead of turning hard, it became whole. This is not a glow that can be mimicked, because it comes not from effort, but from alignment. It moves like a quiet chord struck in harmony with something beyond, and no one can fake what was earned this way. The storms that tried to unravel it instead refined it. People vanished. Safety dissolved. The weight of unseen battles threatened to collapse everything. And yet, what rose out of those ruins does not flicker anymore. Now, when it enters a space, there's no explanation needed. The air changes, not because it demands attention, but because it simply exists fully. There is no arrogance in this energy, only the quiet authority of one who has already faced the fire and chosen not to burn. Others sense it instinctively. They try to mirror it but fall short, because this glow is not a trick of habit or strategy. It is the quiet reward of staying intact through devastation, the natural result of listening when everything else screamed to run. It radiates not to attract, but because it cannot help but radiate. What unsettles others most is that this presence does not clamor to be noticed, yet it is impossible to ignore. Those who live in noise think the answer is to shout louder, move faster, show more. But this power rests in simply being. No one can manufacture what took years of silence, pain, and faith to produce. That's why their imitation feels hollow, and their competition feels irrelevant. This is not magnetism born from volume. It is the calm certainty of someone in tune with something larger than themselves. In a world addicted to doing, such stillness feels like rebellion. It confuses them because they keep searching for the lever that makes it all light up. But there is no switch, only a deep, unshakable alignment that cannot be copied. Some grow irritated, some inspired, but none can deny that the glow was not crafted to be seen. It exists because survival turned into serenity, and that quiet light speaks louder than any proclamation ever could. There is also a wisdom in withdrawing that confuses others. These boundaries are not constructed from pride or vengeance, but from clarity. Distance becomes necessary, not as punishment, but because there comes a point where staying close dishonors what was entrusted. No longer is this separation about proving a point. It is about knowing when a presence has been mishandled enough. There is no need for dramatic exits or lengthy explanations. The step back is subtle, but its meaning is absolute. Proximity here is not casual, it carries weight. To walk alongside such a being is not merely personal, it is a charge. When approached with respect, lives become lighter, more aligned. But when mishandled through deceit, carelessness, or disregard, the cost begins to show. The withdrawal is quiet but heavy. Those who once benefited from the peace, clarity, and strength feel the void almost instantly. What leaves behind is not just silence. It is a mirror they cannot escape. People assume there will always be more time, that they can return once it suits them. But this absence is not about wounded pride. It is about protecting what remains sacred. There comes a moment when grace has been exhausted, and at that moment the quiet departure becomes a message more powerful than any confrontation. What remains is not bitterness, but resolve. Boundaries are not walls to shut others out, but thresholds to test who is ready to enter. Those who understand are strengthened by them. Those who fail to honor them begin their own reckoning, because they never simply lost a person. They lost the chance to honor something rare. That absence lingers long after, not just as a gap, but as a lesson, because being trusted with such presence was never a casual gift, and losing it is never without consequence. Some arrive and instantly unsettle everything, even without meaning to. No words spoken, no actions taken. Yet cracks appear in the facades others have carefully constructed. What has long been hidden inside them begins to stir, surfacing like embers under ash. It is not intentional, but inevitable, because some carry a resonance that disallows illusion to rest undisturbed. In their company, the quiet fractures in people's armor begin to widen. Regrets, unspoken guilt, private envy. All the shadows they thought they'd locked away come alive. What enters the room is not a threat, but it feels like one because it mirrors back everything they refuse to meet in themselves. They may not recognize the discomfort for what it is. They may assume it's attitude, or arrogance, or presence too large to tolerate, but it is none of those things. What they feel is themselves, reflected too clearly. The walls they built suddenly feel thin and inadequate. Rather than face the rising truth, many deflect it outward. They reach for labels, calling it difficult, intense, overbearing. Anything that keeps them from seeing that what unsettles them is not what stands before them, but what awakens inside them. It is why some pour their hearts out, and others vanish overnight. It is why some cling and others lash out. That reaction is not random, it is spiritual. Some open because they are ready. Some retreat because they are not. The presence itself does not demand anything, yet it activates dormant things, hopes, wounds, fears, without trying. And for those not ready to confront what arises, it feels easier to blame the one who sparked it than to heal what was exposed. So when the whispering starts, when distance appears, when stories are twisted, remember, the reaction is not about the presence that revealed the cracks. It is about the cracks themselves. Others look at what has been built and mistake it for ease. They watch the calm and assume it was always there. They admire the strength, the composure, the quiet certainty, believing it appeared out of nowhere. But what they do not see is what it cost to carry it. This was not given freely. Every part was earned in seasons that offered no mercy. The clarity came from confusion, the peace from devastation, the wisdom from loss. What stands now was sculpted for moments of collapse that left no witnesses and no applause. They want what shines, but they do not want the breaking that shaped it. They envy what seems effortless, but ignore the nights that nearly shattered everything. They reach for the grace, but not for the pain that birthed it. What they see is the final result, not the years of silence, the betrayals, the countless times faith had to be chosen over despair. They see the patience, not the struggle. They see the poise, not the storms. This strength is not a trick or a costume. It is not a mask worn to impress. It is what happens when all illusions are stripped away, and the only thing left is truth. So when they envy, compete, or try to imitate, they miss the reality entirely. This was not handed down as a gift, it was forged. Every scar carries its own story, and every glow comes from a wound that healed without anyone watching. What stands now does not stand by luck. It stands because the ashes were not enough to keep it down. This is not magic, this is mastery. Not borrowed, not copied, not taught. And so, when others wish to have what they see but avoid the path that built it, they chase only the surface. What radiates now was paid for in full, and every step of that journey remains alive in the quiet strength that needs no explanation. Some wait their whole lives for something genuine to arrive, whispering in silence for relief, longing for someone to stand by them without agenda, without pretense. They beg for something steady to appear in the chaos of their choices, and eventually it does. But when the answer comes, it rarely looks how they expected. It does not announce itself with spectacle or arrive dressed in their fantasies. It shows up quietly, intentional yet unassuming, carrying more truth than they've ever encountered. And when it stands in front of them, they don't know how to hold it. You did not enter their life to challenge them. You arrived to lift them. You brought presence they could not replicate, clarity they could not fake, care they could not find elsewhere. Yet instead of embracing what stood before them, they doubted, pushed away, tried to fit it into something familiar, even diminished it, believing that somehow it would wait forever. Not because they didn't recognize the value, but because they asked before they were ready to receive. They mistook what they'd been given for something ordinary, thinking they could handle it however they pleased, and keep it near anyway. It turns out some crave blessings only when they feel desperate, not when they're prepared to honor what comes. They ask for light, but still walk in the dark. They ask for truth, but cling to control. They want healing, but refuse to release what broke them. You stepped into their world as the fulfillment of what they claimed to want, and they treated you like a convenience instead of a gift. What they never expected was that your presence would also reveal their own unpreparedness, and once you left, nothing else could replace the space you held. What they thought they could return to at will became a closed door, not from spite, but because what is entrusted must be respected, and when mishandled, it does not return. You did not appear to be worshipped. You came to elevate them to meet the very thing they'd been asking for. But when they chose to stay small, they lost the chance. And what remains is a silence that teaches more than words ever could.